So I've been using these JBL Live 770 NCs for about 6 or 7 months now, and they've not disappointed on any level. The build is held up pretty well, features are pretty solid, and even the sound. In fact, I've grown to like the sound a lot more over all this time. So anyway, I'm normally reviewing a whole bunch of wireless earphones, and the one thing with those is when it comes to battery life, they are a little shallow compared to headphones because of the form factor. But these I take for a few weeks without even ever having to think about charging them up again. So that's one big plus point with these headphones. When it comes to the overall build of these headphones, they're pretty well constructed. In fact, the one thing I've always liked is the fabric finish it has on the headband. It does set it apart from the usual headphones that are just made with some sort of a plastic or a sort of a faux leather. So it does have a nice look and feel to it. It does have a nice comfortable clamping force. It's not too tight and it's not loose, so it holds onto your head pretty tightly. It's not going to fall off anywhere very easily. The ear cups are also made very well. There is a different kind of finish on it. It's not just standard sort of plastic. In fact, let me just show that to you. It is a matte finish, but at the same time, this is sort of a glossy, sort of a gunmetal look, and it looks very smart in particular. And this, of course, is the fabric headband on the top of the JBL branding. It's very nicely finished overall. Now, I've always liked these ear cups because the ear cups, in fact, are quite large. My ears, the upper and lower section of my ears never have touched these ear cups. In fact, it fits very, very comfortably within it. But the only thing I've noticed I have a problem with is with most headphones anyway, because in the summer months when it's hot and it's humid, if you're not in an AC environment, your ears are going to get quite hot with these, because this ear pad does not breathe very well, of course, and it is not an open back set of headphones. It is a closed back, so it is going to get a little bit hot for you, unless, of course, like I said, you are in an air-conditioned room. And then, of course, on a build front as well, it does have tactile buttons, which I quite like. These are nice and clicky, so you know what's going on. And for those of you who don't like tactile buttons and you prefer touch controls, this has it. In fact, as a feature, I do mention that in my in-depth review. In fact, feel free to watch that review. There's a lot more information in that review than there is in the long term. So this is a touch control area as well, which is nice to have. And of course, you also do get your headphones connection over here. And here's your USB-C port for whenever you want to charge it up. And overall, on the build front, it has handled itself very well. It does have this sort of adjustable section in the headband, which has a confident clicking sound, and overall it's held up well. In fact, this thing is not plastic like you see on some headphones. It's properly metal. It is a brushed metal finish, and JBL has really stuck to very good premium quality components, and it does feel pretty solid still, even after all this time. On a feature front, these headphones have pretty much everything you need. Like I mentioned, they do have tactile controls. They even have touch control, so which is pretty cool. But most of the features and control is within the JBL headphones app. So I'll quickly just run you through it because it's pretty extensive. In fact, you can see the headphones battery life within the app, of course. And then you have the ambient sound control, where you can toggle between ANC, ambient aware, and talk through mode. You can go to the customized ANC option for the adaptive ANC, which actually works pretty well. I have used adaptive ANC on other devices, but I find this to be very quick to adapt and more accurately than other brands that I've used before. And of course, the leakage compensation is there in case the earpads aren't fitting too snug, which in most cases it should fit pretty comfortably. And anyway, moving on to the other features, it has something called Personify, where you can personalize your audio. You can listen to certain sounds that it plays back, and it'll sort of compensate for any hearing loss you have. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind, which I didn't do, is you need to do this test in a very quiet environment. Maybe in the still of the night, put your fans off, put your ACs off, and really let the test go through. I did mine when it was pretty noisy in the middle of the day, so you can miss a lot of sounds or tones when it's testing your hearing. Then, of course, you do get the equalizer setting, which lets you toggle between 5 different settings, of course. But what's neat is you do get the option of having this 10-band EQ, and you get a plus minus, I think it's a 5 dB gain. Yeah, it's a plus minus 5 dB gain. So you can play around a lot with the EQ, which is nice. I like to listen to it on its completely flat mode straight out of the box, because it does sound pretty good straight out of the box. They have tuned it very well. And then another thing I really do like is the low volume dynamic EQ. So what this does is, if you are usually looking for rounded lower frequencies and higher highs or crisper highs at lower volumes, a lot of people don't get that. So they crank the volume, and in the long run, you can end up damage your hearing. But with the low volume dynamic EQ, it sort of pushes the highs and the lows slightly higher up. So even at lower volumes, these sound relatively rounded. They do thin out slightly at lower volumes, but having this is a pretty nice option to have. Then of course you do get your spatial audio, which shifts between movie, music and game modes. It does give the illusion of a little more expansion. I mean, it's cool and all, but when it comes to my music listening, I like to have this off because usually with spatial sound, things tend to get a little slightly thinner. They're not as well defined and as well rounded. Anyway, moving on to the gesture control modes, like I mentioned, you do get the action buttons, the tactile buttons, and the touch panel, so you can do everything that you can see on the screen right now. So if you'd like to have a look at it, feel free to. But of course, check out my in-depth review if you really want to go in depth and know about this. Then you do get the voice aware feature, which is used for voice calls. So whenever you're on a voice call and you switch on the voice aware, it feeds in your voice toward you. So you can hear yourself speaking. A lot of people don't like being cut out from hearing themselves or that feedback, so they'll put maybe one earphone on and leave the other ear open, or they'll move the headphone off so that they can hear themselves. But VoiceOver does work well. Smart audio and video ensures that when smart video is on, you get the lowest latency possible while consuming media, be it movies or games, and smart audio ensures that you get the highest quality of audio possible when it's engaged there. Now, auto play and pause, don't ask me how it works because I don't see any sensors on this, but when auto play and pause is on and you take the headphone off your ear, it pauses it automatically and plays when it's back on. I like to have it off. Then you do have personal sound amplification. This is something that's interesting. I suppose if you want to be aware of your surroundings, it's not exactly like the talk through mode or ambient aware mode, because it sort of pulls in information that's near you. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, this actually does a pretty decent job, and you can choose to have different input levels on either side of you, which is interesting to have. And then moving on to the rest, well, you do have a left and right sound balance, which is cool to have, because if you do have slight hearing loss in one ear and your phantom channel is off center, you can always correct it by moving the slider over to one side to recenter your phantom channel. You do get your voice assistant support, so you can choose a native Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant. And of course, you get your voice prompts, you can change the language, your maximum volume limiter. Your maximum volume limiter is capped at 85 decibels, which is nice to see JBL being aware of trying to protect people's hearing. And of course, you do get the auto power off option, which is a good option to have if you want to save battery, and you can choose between 30 minutes, 1 hour and 2 hours. And then of course in your support, you've got your guides and your software versions and all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much the app. So there's a lot over there. And apart from the app, you also do get the active noise cancelling, of course, which I think it works pretty well. In fact, droning noises for fans and AC motors, it eliminates pretty comfortably. In fact, the thing is, the noise isolation on these alone is pretty good. So in some cases, if you're not comfortable using active noise cancelling, you might find yourself reaching say 45 or 50% volume and saying, hey, I don't want active noise cancelling on because the music is anyway drowning out the noise around me. So you switch active noise cancelling off. But what I do like about this is it's not very aggressive in its noise cancelling, in the sense it does do a good job of isolating noise, but it doesn't create a vacuum. You know, a lot of headphones create that suction, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable with that suction. This doesn't do that. At least I haven't experienced any level of suction going on whenever the active noise cancelling is on. So I'd say all in all, the ANC is pretty good. And the thing is, apart from the ANC being good, it also does handle environmental noise cancelling with the same microphones that govern the ANC. So I did do a call demo in my in-depth review, but I will do one for you right now. If you do want to see how your voice will carry over to your recipient, of course, in a very busy setting, here's a quick demo to show you how your voice will carry over to your recipient. So I'm calling from the usual busy street I do all of my call tests from, just to give you a sense of how much these headphones are going to be battling with when it comes to its environmental noise cancelling. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of four-wheelers, two-wheelers, and you might get the occasional pressure horn from a tanker somewhere. And there is some construction work going on over my left shoulder as well. So it's a lot to deal with. So anyway, This has been all the noise around you, and I'll switch over to the JBL Live 770 NC microphone right about
now. So from the last test that I did see that it did do pretty well with eliminating a lot of the noise. But between then and now, there has been a software update. So whether that software update has been specifically to improve certain other settings and not the call quality, I'm not quite certain about. But if you do want to listen to the original call quality compared to this, you can head over to my in-depth review, which I will leave down in the description below. So I also cycled through the different ANC modes when on a call to see if there is an added load on the environmental noise cancelling algorithm. So if you do want to see all of those details, you can head on over to my in-depth review, of course. So overall, this is the overall vocal tonality that will carry over to your recipient. And no doubt, this will do better in a controlled environment. So if you're taking a call from home or from office where you're not near a very busy setting, it's bound to do that much better. So anyway, this has been the call demo for the JBL Live 770 NC. And I hope that this has given you a better understanding for these headphones. And I'll see you back at the studio.
On a battery front, this is pretty sensational. In fact, like I mentioned, I always test a lot of wireless earphones, and after using them for 2.5, 3 hours, and you put them back in the case, they're usually at about 50 or 60% battery life. This one, on the other hand, because it's got such a large battery within it, I'm charging this up maybe every 1.5, 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks, depending on how much I've used it. And the thing is, to be very honest, I don't use this absolutely every day, because I'm busy testing other earphones and all whenever I do get the chance to. So I do cycle between different earphones and headphones, and I have been doing that with this. And on a battery front, it just carries on. So even if you do need to do a quick charge, it does support that. So in fact, a quick charge, I forget, a quick charge is 5 minutes. A 5 minute quick charge will give you 4 hours of listening time, which is pretty good. But one thing to keep in mind is, if you do want to extend those battery usage times whenever you're using these headphones, if the ANC is off, you will get more time. And if you are careful about your volume, a lot of people tend to listen to their headphones and earphones well above 50%, say 70, 80%. It will deplete the battery faster. All the claims and all the testing that usually happens with a lot of products is at 50% volume, using, I think, the AAC codec. Whereas in my situation, I usually don't sit at 50% volume. I'm maybe around 35, 40, depending on the environment also. But I don't like to exceed 50%, because 50 can seem a bit loud. So if you are listening below 50% volume, you might just even get better battery life than JBL claims. Coming to the most important thing for me, at least, the sound. In fact, the sound of these, well, if I'm being very honest, I do have a set of JBL Tune 770 NCs, which I'm in the middle of testing, and I thought that they'd be very similar, but honestly, to put it very simply, you get what you pay for. These things sound absolutely terrific. I mean, these are a little more expensive than the Tunes, but they are, well, without giving too much away, these are bigger sounding. They are, there's a little bit more detail in these. Overall, it is tuned a bit differently compared to the Tune series of JBL headphones. And all in all, I have to honestly say, straight out of the box, it does sound quite good. There's a decent amount of separation between vocals and instruments. You will not get audiophile levels of data recovery or detail. Now, the thing is, if you do want to go high res, these can change their frequency response from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz when in Bluetooth mode. But when you plug in the cable, it will be 20 Hz up to 40,000 Hz. So you can get that much more detail, and the way these perform will depend a lot on the kind of hardware you're using. So if you actually listen to high-res music and you plug into a high-res DAC and amp, the drivers will pass that information over to you much better than it would in Bluetooth. But coming back to how these sound, the highs are not piercing, in the sense they're not going to cut your ears off when you're listening to anything. Even for very shrill things, it is kind of, I wouldn't say muted, but it's just about right. It doesn't sound flat, it doesn't sound dull. It is sharp enough to carry a good amount of detail over to you, and it's not going to be too sharp to cut your ear. Whereas when you move over to the mid-range, there are some specific songs that can sound sibilant. There is almost like the upper mid-range does have an elevation. So very few songs can cut through and sound sibilant, especially if you're sensitive to that frequency in particular. But again, it depends a lot on the kind of song and mix the overall recording and mix that you're listening to, but overall vocal tonality and everything does come through very well, and it does have a decent amount of separation between vocals and instruments. But like I did mention, these are not audiophile grade, so it's not going to be sort of night and day kind of separation. And then moving over to the lower frequencies, this has a lot of body in the mid lower frequencies and even the upper. The sub low is prominent, but it's not as prominent as the upper lows and the mid low frequencies. So you do get a big body with these. These sound big, especially if you're listening to EDM. If you're watching movies with a lot of action, explosions and all, are going to sound very large. So these headphones do have a very big sort of personality with when it comes to listening to anything with heavy bass, and these don't struggle at all when it comes to bass. There are some headphones that they're not tuned to handle bass very well. They're more on the flatter side of things, and they tend to struggle when you put bass heavy music through them. Not these. These are more than happy to get up and play that kind of lower frequency. So all in all, even on a sound front, I'd say these are very enjoyable to listen to. Detail is great. I mean, it's not going to, like I mentioned, it's not audiophile great, but it is more than good enough to zone into dialogue, even if you're watching a movie, or even listen to lyrics in music and really be able to connect with a lot of words if you do prefer listening to a lot of lyrics in music. So would I recommend this after all this time? Well, honestly, of all the headphones that I've been reviewing over the past few years, I really do like that they've done something different to these. The way they're built, that fabric finish on top is just, for me, that's a huge reason why I really like these. Just the sheer look of it, the contrasting colors of the black and the gunmetal on the ear cups also looks quite cool. And of course, the comfort. It's a very comfortable set of headphones to listen to, and of course that sound that it has, it's great for casual listening, especially if you're traveling, preferably on an AC or in an AC vehicle, because your ears can get very hot. But all in all, I'd still highly recommend these if you do have the budget. And speaking about budget, well, how much do these go? I think they're a little more affordable now than when I first reviewed them. These do have a maximum retail price of 14,999 rupees, but you can make these yours right now for about 10,998 rupees, which I'd say is a pretty good deal. It is good value for them. And of course, if you do want to know a lot more about these headphones, I really deep dive in my in-depth reviews. So I will leave the link to my in-depth review down below, and I'll also leave it on the card above, wherever that is. So you can head on over there and really see what these are about. I also do have a call demo there, an ANC demo, and if I'm not mistaken, there's also a latency demo. So feel free to check out my in-depth review if you'd like to buy these headphones. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and I do hope that I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. If you would like to help support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice.